Hey, my name is CJ Cassiata. Welcome to Reculture. This is a show about better messages, messages that don't just tell us what to react to, but help us understand where we are, messages that don't just pull us in or grab our attention, but actually point us somewhere. Because whether we are navigating a brand or a team or a family or like even just our own lives, we are all living inside stories, whether we've chosen them or not. But the real question is how we navigate the one we're becoming. See, when I was a kid, like a lot of kids, I was always embodying some kind of superhero. Like I grew up on Batman and Zorro and Ninja Turtles and The Princess Bride. There was just a lot of swashbuckling going on in the Cassiata household. Socks were stuffed in my shirt for muscles. By the way, if you're watching the video version of this, you will notice the cardboard abs in the Ninja Turtle photo. And around the time I was 6, I clearly know what I'm doing in the superhero business. I've played multiple roles, and I'm thinking I'm going to start my own superhero. I'm going to name my own superhero. I'm going to be my own superhero. And I called him Action Adventure Man. It's a good name, right? And I was serious about this thing. I drew flyers by hand, and I taped them all over the telephone poles in the neighborhood. And they said something like, if you need a crime solved, call Action Adventure Man. Except the phone number was my mom's phone number because I wasn't allowed to answer the phone because I was 6. And, some might see this as mildly delusional for a 6-year-old, but in my mind, like I wasn't just playing. I was stepping into this entire story. And I don't think that instinct ever really leaves us. Like one of my favorite movies growing up was Hook. It's a story based on Peter Pan, which is such a British story when you think about it, by the way. Only the Brits could turn childhood into something that's both magical and slightly melancholy at the same time. I love it. I'm here for it. Anyway, it's this story that kind of just puts this idea out there of like, what if Peter Pan grew up? Like, let's break the rules of Peter Pan, of this Peter Pan myth. And the guy does. He becomes like this really successful adult and a husband and a dad and a pretty sharp business guy, which are all really good things, right? But he loses Neverland in the process. And there's this moment in the movie, it's like my favorite moment, where one of the Lost Boys, he grabs Peter's face and he kind of pulls it around and he stares really deep into his eyes and he finally says, "Oh, there you are, Peter." See, before Peter could relearn how to fight, before he could remember how to fly, the guy needed to be seen. And see, I'm of the opinion that there's always a little Neverland left in us, but we also have bills to pay. And let's be honest, it's easier to walk around like Robin Williams in pants than Robin Williams in tights. But I don't think that call for adventure of Neverland like ever really disappears. It's just that there's a lot competing for our attention, and it just gets harder to notice that it's still in there. And attention is great, by the way. In Hook, when Captain Hook captures Peter's kids, I mean, he gets Peter's attention pretty instantly. It's the thing that wakes him up and snaps him out of his 90s yuppies vibe. But we live in a moment right now where attention has become the currency. Like if a message captures attention, it's considered a win. And yet in a world where I think most of us would agree we don't actually lack information, like there's a lot of it, what we all seem to be longing for is formation. And if you carry responsibility for other people, if you lead a team, a company, a community, you feel this tension more than anybody else, I think, because you're not just trying to get attention, you're trying to move people somewhere. Like I'm realizing this in my own work, that like better messages don't just capture our attention. Like Hook, they send people on adventures. Attention grabs us, direction moves us forward. So, in case you're thinking, well, that's too much. I can't be sending people all over the place for hours and hours searching for like God knows what. I'm not Target. There's a quote that I just absolutely love from Kurt Vonnegut, and it goes like this.
My, my wife hears me going past her workstation there, and she says, "Where are you going?" I say, "I'm going to buy an envelope." And she say, "One envelope? Why don't you buy 100 envelopes and put them in a closet up where you work?" And I pretend I haven't heard her. And out into the world I go. And what a figure I am. I am a man with a mission. And I go dancing down our front steps and out on the sidewalk. And, on the way, I may stop a woman and ask her what kind of crazy dog that is she's walking. It looks like a half Labrador and half Chihuahua. Or if a fire engine is going by, I might give them thumbs up, because I'm all for firemen. Anyway, off I go, the man with a purpose, and I go into the news store there, and so I go back and I get an 8.5 by 11 envelope.
Adventures don't have to be wild. They could be mild. All right, still don't believe me? 2 words, pickle ball. I mean, think about how many people picked that up because they were desperate to get off their feet and do something after COVID. I mean, I've got the least hand-eye coordination of like anybody I know, and I am halfway decent at pickleball. That should say something. Another example, this past year, I decided to make my own Christmas decorations because, hey, the economy. But I made a bunch of these plywood cutouts of the Charlie Brown Christmas characters. And then I created this like little tutorial about the process. And to my surprise, that thing kind of went viral. I think people are really hungry for this kind of DIY content, not because it's hard, but because it feels within reach. It feels doable. So yeah, adventures don't have to be impressive. They just have to be chosen. Adventures are how people go from simply being captured to taking some kind of action. Because people don't move because they're told to. People move because something invites them. Okay, so how do we do this? I think this can happen a lot of different ways, but when messages actually move people, not just inform them, from what I've seen, they tend to pass through these same forces: joy, awe, and courage. Okay, first, joy opens people. It's great because joy never really tries to convince anyone. It's just really good at disarming them. Like, think about how receptive you are when you are experiencing joy. Like, think about Christmas or your birthday. You're usually just a little bit more huggy. You're a little bit more reflective. You're a little bit more open. That's joy's job. It's to open us up. This is the food fight scene in Hook, by the way. Like, Peter becomes Peter Pan again when he is in the middle of this totally fun food fight with the other Lost Boys. Joy is the first part of the adventure. The next thing that moves people is awe. And what awe does is it reorients us. Awe reminds us that there's something bigger than ourselves. Another word for awe would be wonder, or something that makes us marvel. Like, this is superhero stuff. Awe takes us out of our comfort zone and into the story we could become if we had one more thing, and that one more thing is courage. Courage is the final step. Messages that give people courage once they've opened up, once they've stepped out of their comfort zone, whether that's pickleball or pirates, are ultimately the thing that help them move in whatever direction we're inviting them to move. So this isn't a formula. This isn't a framework. Every grand adventure needs a map, right? Think of this as an adventure map. It's just how people tend to move. So what makes following this kind of map so hard? Because if it was easy, like, everybody would be doing it, right? Well, I've got a couple thoughts. I think, like, in work and culture and brands and institutions, there's just this very real and very understandable urge to shortcut the adventure and just jump straight into action. Again, there's bills to pay. There's mouths to feed. Pants over tights. That's the energy that we just naturally tend to bring. But I'm telling you, you can see the difference play out even recently. I think about this recent political campaign that was in the national spotlight. One campaign used a bunch of AI, and it was polished and it was very efficient, but it was kind of forgettable pretty instantly. And then the other campaign was like super intentional about inviting people to make things together. And that stuff was handmade, and it was messy, and probably didn't always align to the brand standards, but it was participatory. And so you had one campaign that optimized for output, and the other created a shared journey. And I think messages that skip that formation part often get compliance. But messages that invite adventure get commitment. Okay, so all the way back to superheroes again. I got this photo of my dad as a kid dressed like a superhero. And I look at it a lot and I think about it a lot. Because somewhere along the way, my dad stopped going on adventures. Like even the mild ones started to scare him. He'd be afraid to leave the house. He'd be afraid that like if he did, the world was going to end. Like the dog would run away, or he'd run out of money. I don't think most people stop going on adventures because they don't care. I think they stop because discomfort starts to feel like danger. But something super interesting happened just recently. This is true. This was one of those stories where I was like, I really don't have a good ending for this story. But anyway, my dad got a chance to move. He got this incredible opportunity to move with his dog across the absolute other side of the country to San Diego. He just had to go. And I can't tell you how many times we were on the phone with him and he goes, "Oh, I don't know if I could do it. Oh, what if the dog gets anxious? What if the movers, don't show up?" And I said, "Okay, first of all, the dog's only going to get anxious if you're anxious. And second of all, movers never show up on time. So you just should plan for that." But you know what? He did it. Him and his dog got in his car and did a 5-day, 3,000-mile journey from Tampa, Florida to San Diego, California. And he lived to tell the tale. He was like John Steinbeck from Travels with Charlie. And there's a quote from that book that goes, "To find where you are going, you must know where you are." I think this is kind of where my work lives right now, like helping people and teams and leaders like understand the story they're in and step into a better one. If this resonates with you, it's probably because you care about where messages take people, not just where they land. And that's the work I'm exploring right now through talks and stories and working with teams to create messages that are focused on formation, not just information. That don't just capture people's attention, but send them on action adventures. After all, I am Action Adventure Man. If you need to get a hold of me, my mom's phone number is 845-988-55. Hey, thank you for listening to Reculture. To learn more about our message studio and the work we do, go to reculture.tv. You can also follow me, CJ, on Instagram at the CJ account.